Hi there guys, and welcome to the latest episode of The Tantrum Show. Today I'm going to speak to Rob Claisse. Now for those of you who don't know who Rob is the head honcho at Progression. The guys who make all the videos that you've probably been watching when you want to learn how to do your next trick or you want to learn how to kite surf. Basically, Rob's been pumping out these videos for the last 10-15 years, and they have been hugely influential and hugely useful for anyone trying to improve their kite surfing, because the way that Rob teaches and the way that the videos are produced is hugely beneficial for anyone going through the motions of learning to kite surf. And as it so happens, Rob has just released a How to Foilboard, Learn How to Foilboard series, which I've been using alongside my lessons here to sort of fine-tune my riding technique. And I have to say, I found them absolutely brilliant. So what I asked Rob to do is come on and give me a bit of live one-on-one coaching on what I was doing. And that's what we talk about in this interview. So this is Rob talking about how I can go about the mistakes I'm making and how I can go about correcting them to learn to foilboard this week.
So cool. Tell me, like, how did your lesson actually go yesterday then? What was you, what were you finding is?
So what I'm kind of struggling at the moment with, I've got riding regular, more or less by the end I was actually riding on the board for, let's say, 50, 100 meters.
Yeah.
Riding goofy, coming back right, which is my weaker side anyway. I am doing just the take off out of the water, super high jump, and then just coming down in a mess on the other side generally. Yeah, not all the time, but very generally that's the symptom that I'm having.
Which basically screws up your whole chance of, being able to get upwind. As soon as you make one crash, then you're not going to hold your ground, are you? So you start drifting downwind, which is that whole off the foil thing. Is it once you do crack it and you can hold your ground, then you've mastered enough skills that the change to then ride on the foil, to actually learn to rise up and glide along, is actually quite a small. Like that off the foil bit is the hardest bit. Mm-hmm. And you're riding with quite a big kite, I think.
This was starting on a 14, starting on a 14 DNA, so a bit of a truck as well. DNA, powerful kite.
That definitely makes it harder. I think it's a hard one with kite size, because for up until more recently, I was very adamant that you should be slightly underpowered. You should fly the kite a lot, for two reasons. One, too much power is hard to control on a foil. It's very easy. You get your weight slightly out of place and you dive the kite at the wrong moment and you get that trucky pull. It's really hard to control. And also, we need to be working towards a point where we're not moving the kite too much, where we are getting used to a very different style of riding, where we're not leaning back, edging hard, like we're used to having power. That's what kite surfing is all about. We edge against the kite. We love this feeling of grunt and power pulling us along. Whereas with foiling, that's not, at least initially, not what you really want. You want to just feel neutrally balanced against the kite. I am feeling very confident just to stand on the board and feel like I'm literally just standing on one of those balance boards. Yeah. Like for me, it's like kite's not really, I don't feel like I need the kite to be pulling me. And that's one of the things you need to learn and have the confidence that actually this foil, even when the board's on the water, the foil's generating all that lift and it is driving you forwards. It's giving you lift, which is then helping you to have extra forward speed, I guess. Yeah. So you don't need that same crazy power that you thought you would need if you were underpowered on a twin tip or a surfboard.
This is exactly what I realised watching your video this morning. Your progression video on the water start, is that what I was doing the kind of the traditional twin tip water start. So it was the big stroke and dive down. And when I think about what I was doing on my left side, I was doing a much more, probably stopping at about 45 degrees and holding that high. And that was something that instantly clicked off your video. Was okay, that's what I'm doing. I'm driving it through, and then as it says in the video, I'm trying to control the power with my back leg.
Exactly, because you can do that. So I up until recently, 10 meters has been my biggest kite, and I can go out on a foil from 10 knots, and I'm 105 kilos, 230 pounds. So I just need enough power to get me you know, it's that initial dive gets you up and over the board, and that takes quite a lot of technique with a 10 meter in only 10 knots. Like, it might take a few goes, and you're getting up and then getting your weight into just the right place so you're just balanced on that board.
Yeah.
And then hopefully just getting your next one to get it onto the foil. Now, if you're riding off the foil, you need that little bit more, because it's actually quite hard to ride off the foil in very light winds, small kite. But with a big kite, if you drop it down really low, particularly in those early stages, your instinct kicks in, and your instinct is to do what you do on a twin tip, which is to edge the board. Because you're like, I've got all this power, I'm going to edge it, and I'm going to drive the board forwards. But actually on a foil, you don't want to be driving, you just want to be getting your body up and over it. And all you need it to do is just start moving just the littlest of bits, and suddenly you get all this extra lift off the foil, even when it's on the water, the board's on the water. So you don't need, or with a smaller kite, you could drop it very low and you wouldn't have that. You've got to drop it enough to give you enough power to get you up, but not to overpower you. As soon as you overpowers you, then that's when you start edging. And even if you don't put your weight back and you edge off your front foot, that's still quite a hard technique to learn straight off, because ultimately your weight will come back a bit, and you'll start to accelerate, and then the board will fly off in front of you, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
When I teach people that struggle a bit with that water start, and it just goes back to the basics of the water start that we teach everyone normally. That in-between stage of say, well, just don't dump the kite to start with. Do like a couple of small ones and just get your butt out of the water and just allow yourself to come up a little bit at a time. And I think if you are riding with a bigger kite, like quite grunty kite, that's maybe the thing to do on your bad side. Do like just smaller drops and just see how far you need to do it before you just get to that point where you come up and you're over the board and you're just standing on it. And then maybe you're falling backwards because you'll be like, oh, I'm up, and you're balanced, and you haven't got a time on that kind of slower kite maybe to get it back into position. But at least you'll get that feeling of like to be up and in the right place. And then you think, right, okay, now I need to do it and just react a bit quicker. All the stuff we teach in general water stuff. Beginners. It is fundamentally the same.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I found really interesting, actually, again, on your videos, and this was something that I realised I'd been doing massively on both sides, but much more on my weaker side, is the bearing away.
Yeah.
Naturally, obviously, that's what I've done for 15 years. You come up and you bear away, and then to be told, actually, you don't need to do that on a foil because the foil is going to generate all that lift. Suddenly you think, okay, right, yeah, I get that, because again, thinking back to what was happening on my good side, I wasn't bearing away. I was just tracking straight. Super
exactly.
It was at least across the wind on that side.
It's how you handle on a twin tip, big grunty kite. We drop it down, a bit too much power, bear away, sort of balance the two of power and how broad we need to do to get it kind of aligned, and then we carve up as we get the power under control. The problem with the foil is you bear away, it's even harder to keep our weight forwards. Like, we can't just dig the tail in to handle the power. Generally what happens is we bear away and the board accelerates quicker than us, and we're off to the races, up into the air, and everything goes a bit. So that's why finding that balance of power, and it really depends on how big your kite is, how much wind you've got, also the type of foil you've got. If you've got, you were saying this morning you tried a few different front wings.
The first wing was
a huge difference.
Yeah, it did. It made a massive difference. Yeah.
I actually think when you're doing the off the foil part, actually sometimes just being on quite a small wing that isn't going to generate a great deal of lift is actually quite good, because it's not going to just suddenly shoot out the water. There's been now kind of surf wings have come about. Everyone's like, oh, these are really great because you don't have to have much power. You can go in very light winds, and we'll put these on kite boards or kite foil boards, and they'll be great for beginners. But actually these kind of big high lift surf wings are not always that great, because they generate a lot of lift quite quickly. So it's the speed at which a little bit thing and something pops up really fast actually catches out the beginner. But also the downside with them is they're actually quite directionally stable, which is what you want on a surfboard. When you're on a surfboard or a SUP and you get going, you have no kite there. You've got nothing to lean back against. So you want something that's going to track quite nicely along. You want it to carve, but you engage that through your body weight. For us as kiteboarders, once you foil and you jump back onto a twin tip or a surfboard, it feels like the loosest kind of like, this thing just moves in every direction you want it to. You can push your front and your back foot around. And so you can imagine when you have no foiling experience and you jump onto a foil, if you jump onto a foil that just wants to go forwards and nothing else, like super directionally stable, you get on it, and I've told you not to bear off too much, so you try and track across the wind. You've got too much power, this thing just accelerates forwards, and then you only need a little bit of yaw, is the sideways, like us moving the board in this direction. And so a wing that will allow there to be a bit of have a bit of yaw in it, is actually really good for a beginner, because it allows them to come up and at least push the nose away a little bit, feel a little bit like they are in control, rather than coming up, accelerating forwards and you pinging over your toe side edge. So that's why some of these big high lift wings are actually kind of a little bit problematic for some people when they first learn. So actually sometimes going on the smaller wing, when you're just riding off the foil, it will generate that bit of lift, but it won't catch you out, which, you know.
Well, that was exactly what happened. We switched to a smaller wing, and so it was, oh wow, this is, you know, I just think, oh, I've just got a lot better, you know.
If you do go on the bigger wings, then you can get away with a really small kite, because the point of those big wings is you can ride at very slow speeds. Right, so actually, you don't need a lot of power to get them going. They'll get going at a lower speed, and then they will effectively foil at a lower speed. So like, I have a big surf wing, and I can go out in that on my 8 meter in the same wind that I would be able to ride quite nicely on my, say, medium wing, on my 10. So I can drop down a kite size just by using a smaller wing. So there's lots of stuff like this that's coming around in foiling now, and I can imagine very easily, as we go on, in the same way we have lots of different kite sizes and things and different body weights. For a long time, I felt like, wow, as a big guy, I can ride the same kind of kite and foil as, you know, Danny, who's like, you know, 40 kilos lighter than me. And actually, we're starting to find that, you know, probably there's going to be a range. This is the heavyweight foil wing, this is the medium weight wing, this is the light person's wing.
Just like kites, you have three different wings, and you change them for each day depending on the conditions and what you want to do.
Exactly. So for beginners, you know, it's kind of hard at the moment, because it's hard to know what kit is really gonna. Is it the kit that's holding you back? Is it the?
Of course, it's the kit. Of course, it's the kit. It's always the kit. It's always the kit.
But it's getting that combination of the right foil with the right kite in the wind conditions that you've got. At the end of the day, you've got to cope with the conditions you've got. You can't magically say 15 to 20 knots, which is that kind of ideal conditions, 15 to 18, whatever it might be. And then put that into your own ability and being really honest about, right, how good a kiteboarder am I? How easily do I learn stuff? Because even guys that have been kiting for 10 years might have found that it's been very hard going for them, but they really persevered and they've got to 10 years of kiting and they've learned loads of stuff, but they know, I'm not the most natural kiteboarder. I need a little bit more work to get somewhere. And being honest with ourselves allows us to find the right kind of setup for an individual, and then help them down that path, basically. And that's where the coaching's been really interesting, and actually allowed me to maybe I have to generalize everything for the videos, but have to try and find a general path and not overcomplicate it with too many options. But the coaching kind of has allowed us to find a few different routes for different types of people, and come up with this overall thing of kind of like, there is an equation. I'm a mathematician as well. So
right, okay.
Kind of thing, like conditions, equipment, and skill, and you've got to put these three together, and the more skill you've got, then the more variety you have on a location and conditions and equipment. The less skill you have, the more specific you need to be about the conditions you go out in, and the more beginner orientated a foil you use. There's just this scale there, and you just got to be really honest about it. If you really want to learn to foil, you've got to look at yourself and go, right, that's who I am. That's what I need to learn in, and that's the kit I need to use.
Yeah, because it's not easy. I mean, this is the one thing that's really surprised me. I thought, you know, I kited for 13 years. I'm generally quite sporty. You know, I pick things up quite quickly. I thought, you know, give me half an hour, I'll be doing this. And the first few times you're like, what the hell is this? Is just like nothing I've ever tried before. I've got zero control over this. It's just such a new kind of concept, and I think now, you know, I'm learning on foils that are actually quite easy. You know, people talk about 2 years ago when it was just, you know. So
and that's a big problem that a lot of people have, is that you know, and we're starting to grow out of it now because the second-hand market's getting a lot better. Like probably foils from the last year, there's a lot of foils that are pretty good for people to learn on. Whereas when I first learned, everyone was just like, buy a race foil, you're going to get bored of anything else, they're really mediocre, and you're going to have to sell it and then spend a load more money. Just buy a race foil, or effectively a high performance wing, and just persevere. It'll be really horrible to learn, but you'll get over it. Yeah. A lot of that stuff's still on the market, that kit that, you know, because people are selling it, and it's just the worst thing for people to do, because I've got friends who went through that, who've been foiling for like 3 years, who still can't jibe. They can't carve round and they can't swap their feet. And, you know, swapping your feet is actually, on the foil, is a really hard thing to learn. But carving round onto your toe side, riding toe side, carving back onto your heel side on the foil, that's achievable by everyone. You know, it's just the progression you've got to go through, and you just got to get better and better handling of the foil, and then you'll start to get into those, and then you can start trying to do the foot switch. But yeah, if you want to race foil, it's hard because you've got to go full speed the whole time. You know, someone, I'm like, and they're like, you go really slow on your foil. I'm like, yeah, it's amazing. I can literally, on my surf foil, I can just hootle along at like 5 or 6 miles an hour. And I can just, guys, I've been out before with guys on like surf boards and stuff, and I'll just like come up to them and be like, hiya, and they're just like, what's going on? And I'm just like cruising along, or like, you know, it's
but that's
great
the ideal, surely. Surely that's the ideal, isn't it? Isn't that what you kind of aim for rapid progression? Is that the board is slipping out of control?
Yeah, you want to be able to just go. What's great is the fact that you can go so slow is what makes foiling so, in some ways, makes it easier to learn things like carving turns and that side of things, because learning it on a surfboard, you've kind of got to get your kite and your board in sync perfectly, really, because as soon as your kite, say you're carving around on a surfboard, if you fly the kite too early, then you lose power and you sink. If you fly it too late, then you lose power and sink. On a foil, we have a lot of issues that we have to get through to get people around the carve. But what's crazy is that actually you can carve around and you can come out and be like, oh my God, I've got around you on your toe side. You're like, this is amazing. And you look at your kite and you're like, oh my God, I forgot to turn my kite. My kite is still riding in the other direction. You're foiling still. And you're like, oh God, and you just down leap the kite quickly. It catches you back up and you carry on magically. And that kind of stuff just blows your mind. And you know, and you can just be riding along and just looping your kite the whole time, or just sending it in lots of weird places and putting it in. I mean, if you're reasonably powered up, you can literally ride along on the foil with your kite at 11:55, like literally just off the top of the wind. And it's just generating enough lift to keep you going.
Because again, this was something from your videos, you know, again, watching your videos, and you were saying you need to be keeping the kite higher. This is why I think your videos are so good, because every single, you know, not every single point, because obviously some of them you are doing right, but on every single kind of extra screen, there was there we go.
It's reinforcing. I mean, this is the thing. This is what I say. Like, there is really just 3 or 4 key things that people need to, like, weight forwards, key thing, body weight over the board, and then, you know, keeping your kite high. And sometimes that confuses people, because then they try, and I've refined my language on that, because I'm like, you've got to keep kite high. And then you see people trying to water start, and they're like literally hardly moving the kite. Like, oh, no. One big movement to get it up. As soon as you're up on the board, really high. And there's lots of nice techniques. So when the video I'm just editing now, that should be out today, probably going to be Monday now, which is the actual rise and glide. So once you can ride back and forth on the foil, we then do the rise and we glide. And, you know, the kite for that is so vital. And the biggest mistake people make on that one, you see, is that they drop their kite down and then they fly it really low. Like they kind of forget about it a little bit, and it ends up quite low down, because they get into this position, they kind of come up onto the foil, and suddenly they're in this very neutral state with the kite. They don't need that much power. And so they just stop focusing on the board, and the kite just slowly drops and drops and drops and drops. And then they're like, oh my God, my kite's really low, and you've got no control over it, and you're just balanced on this board, and it all goes horribly wrong. You know, a guy that I helped down the beach the other day had been trying to learn for a long time. He finally got a new foil. It helped him get off the foil stuff. So I said, right, here's my 3 tips for getting on the foil today. And the one that worked for him was, you bring the kite up to start with. So you either have it at 45 and you direct it up, or you drop it a bit lower if the wind's a bit lighter and you just direct it up. And that's the first thing you do before you try and get on the foil. And it's such a great thing to do because A, it helps you because it takes a bit of weight off your feet to allow you to get up. But the best thing is it just gets the kite really high, and you come onto the foil and your kite's just sitting high up and you can forget about it. And you can just start focusing on the board. You've got nice upwards lift. You can sheet in when you need to just to take a little bit of weight off. And that, you know, that is one of those just, you let people know about that who don't realize it and are using all these techniques they've used on their twin tip and surfboard, and suddenly they're just forgetting about the kite because it's just sitting around up the top here, and they realize, wow, I don't really need to use it, do I? No, don't. Just sit at 11.
Just there and goes.
And now and again, you might just drop it down a bit. And then as you get better, you can start riding wherever you want. You can have it like a foot off the water if you want to. You know, when you start really trying to track up wind, you bring it lower. But, you know, you can do a hell of a lot with your kite in that top kind of 20% of the wind.
Yeah.
Kite, it all comes down to kite. Like every part of kite.
Yeah, it always does, doesn't it? It always comes back to the kite. Yeah, for sure.
Whatever we do, teaching anyone in any part of kite sports, if you can't fly a kite properly and you don't, and you lose track of that, then it all goes to pot.
Yeah, and if the kite's not in the right position, doesn't matter what you try and do with your body. If the kite's pulling you in the wrong position, you're not going to get your body into it. You're not going to beat the kite. So it's
what kind of winds are you learning in at the moment?
At the moment, the last 2 days, it's been pretty poor, to be honest. It's been, well, I mean, no, towards the end of yesterday, we probably got about, I don't know, 12, 14 knots. We were on 12.
Okay.
So it was not, and this was it. Suddenly then, and it was, oh, right, okay, this is when I can actually get it again. So hopefully,
you see how it makes that real difference when you get like 12 to 14 knots, either, you know, depending on who you are and your different skills and stuff. 12 to sort of 9 meter is, you know, perfect in that kind of.
Yeah.
If you're kind of happy with a bigger kite and don't use it too much, then and park it, it's good. And 9 meter maybe in those winds you'd be flying it a little bit more.
Yeah.
The other thing about the slightly smaller kite, I forgot to mention before, is what you will find when you're using, like, say you're on your 14 and you're like, oh yeah, I'm kind of getting it now. When you when you do rise up onto the foil, suddenly the kite that feels underpowered off the foil suddenly feels like you are like absolutely hanging on for the kite. I've been out in days literally on my 10 meter in like 10 to 11 knots, and I've been working it really hard, and then I pop onto my foil and be like, God, I feel quite powered up now. This is kind of crazy. In the water, and it's like really, and you do have those moments when you feel powered up and you're riding along and you see the water state change and you know the wind's dropped. You know it's dropped a good few knots, and you're like, and you're right at the back and you're like, if I try and jibe now, I don't think there's enough room for me to get round. I'm not going to be able to tack. If I fall in, I don't know if I can water start, but I feel powered up. Apparent wind is just a whole, everything we know about apparent wind just changes.
Well, I put some videos up in the group this week, and there's just guys foiling, and, you know, huge lakes. So it wasn't like a short, you know, breakwater, just flat, wakeboard flat, and they're riding. You think, Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I was chatting with Mark Shin, and he said he's got a 19 meter foil kite. And he said if he can keep that in the sky in 3 knots of wind, and he can get into the water, if you can get into the water with it and drop it the first time, then he knows he's good to go and ride. And yes, it might take him, as soon as he's got it moving, it might take him a while to get on the board and a lot of fancy kite work to get up and get it moving. But once you're up, you're fine, because then it's just, I don't really understand how it works.
It's a whole new world, isn't it? It's a whole new world of physics that we've got to learn.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it is a lot of fun.
All right, well, that gives me plenty to be working with today. As I say, just from this chat and from your videos, I've got tons to be working. I reckon today's the day I'm going to crack it. This is it. Done now. Done. I'm there.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're going to get that alternate tack pretty quickly, and I think if it sounds like you already know what it is. You just got to sort out the kite movement a little bit and maybe be a little bit more gentle with it. Like I always say to everyone, like, you can't have enough front foot pressure. That's always coming from twin tips and stuff. Like, it's amazing how many people transition towards the front foot and then they come in and you're like, you need more, and then they'll go out and do a few, and you're like,
I can't get any more. It's still a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But with the kite if you can keep the kite higher, actually, you can really overload the front foot without burying the nose or without kind of it sticking. Sometimes if people put loads of weight on the front foot and then they end up with the kite really low and it ends up just kind of pulling them over the front, there's too much pressure really. If you keep that kite, even if you're flying it, just fly it nice and high in the window. Small movements, you just need that little bit of extra power from just a moving kite.
Yeah.
And then you can literally, did you see the bit in the Off the Floor video, standing on the beach? I mean, I do this with a lot of everyone that I teach now.
Yeah.
It's a great thing to do because so many people I stand opposite them and said, right, mimic what I'm doing, right? So you get your legs into this nice kind of stance, and then I want you to like really get your weight over your front foot. I want you to really feel like you're engaging your muscles. And they stand opposite me, like really limply, kind of like this. And I'm like, okay, you're not bending your legs as much as me. You're not really like, look, your shoulder isn't over your front foot. Can you lift your back foot up? And they're like, try and lift it up, and they fall onto that foot. And I'm like, look, you should feel like all your weight can be on your front foot. Yeah. It probably isn't. You're going to have a little bit of weight on your back foot, but you should at least feel like you can get into that stance.
Well, I went and did the exercise outside as soon as I was watching the video, and it is amazing. It's nowhere near what I should be. So
yeah, exactly. And so it just sets it in your mind, right? Okay, this is where I need to be. And I've got exactly the same thing in the rise and glide. Like there's 3 movements for that, and you can just do them on the beach. It's so simple, and you feel a bit of a prat doing them on the beach.
Yeah, but
because it gets it in your head.
Less of a prat than I felt yesterday, dragging in 400 meters downwind and getting rescued.
But the thing is, like, you're laughing about it, and it is a lot of fun, even just ratting around, crashing a bit, but getting those short runs off the foil in what is for someone who's been kiting for 13 years, riding along off the foil in this very rudimentary stance, it's like, feels amazing still, doesn't it? Like, you crack something, and you're like, oh my God, this is awesome.
Yeah. I think it's a bigger rush than kite looping. Now it's like, wow, this is all I want to do. This is awesome.
Yeah. Oh, you've got amazing things to come.
I'm looking forward to it. So Rob, that's awesome. Thank you very much for all that advice. That I'm going to go out today and nail it. I promise. I don't have no excuses now. But if people want to know more about obviously you, what you're doing, the videos that you do that have blown my mind and sort of changed my entire perception of what I'm going to be doing today, where can they find more information on that?
Okay, so if you go to our website, progression.me, then all the foiling videos are there. The last couple I'm still editing at the moment, but that is really your best route to get a good understanding of what foiling's about and everything you need to learn. Now, on top of that, we also run Progression Live with Danny Morris, who's UK air rush rider. We are doing coaching. We've got overseas camps, a couple this year in Portugal and Morocco, but also we're running UK camps, UK clinics. So on the south coast, we're going to do a couple in the north as well, and hopefully one in Wales. So that's a great way, whether you're a beginner or an intermediate, we've got different days you can come along. And it's amazing when you actually spend a bit of time with someone who's got a bit of experience. Beginners, it's just giving you some confidence to have someone there can tell you little bits and just know that when I screw up, there's someone on the beach that's going to help me. That's a big part of it. For the intermediate, it's amazing how small things we can sort out. Just tweaking your equipment, your foot strap position, your mast track, where you stack your stance. It's those little things that we tweak for the intermediate rider, and suddenly they find they can get around a carve. Like, sometimes it's not even about teaching them the actual technique they want to learn. It's just actually sorting out some of the basics of their riding. So coming on a clinic can really help with that. And one other thing I think is really good. So I live on the south coast of England near Brighton, and we have a Facebook group that is purely about meeting up to go foiling. And we don't sell stuff on there. We don't use it to talk about the World Cup or any other crap. It's just about, I'm going foiling. This is what the conditions look like. I'm going off this beat. Hey, some people come down and have a foil with me. And it's just grown and grown and grown. And I mean, it's small, it's like 50, 60 people, but we sometimes have like more organized meetups through it. And on our local beach in Lancing, like the other week, we had 25 foilers, from guys who are beginners, just learning, through to guys who are racing and flying up to, 5 kilometers upwind to Lancing and back and doing that side of things. And everyone's on the beach in between. everyone's learning, everyone's discussing, we're trying each other's kit, we're talking about what's working, what's not. We're doing, me and Danny do bits of coaching stuff. So I'd really recommend, if you live in an area where you've got, like, maybe there's different foilers, but you don't know who everyone is, set up a little group, get people involved, and try and ride with other people, because that's a really great way of sharing some knowledge in something that is just changing all the time. And so, like, sharing knowledge is like the best thing we can do to help everyone improve, and then it will just become a better and better sport.
Yeah, awesome advice. And it's always great to have someone else with you at the beach anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, really good advice. And that sounds awesome. Okay, cheers, mate. Thank you very much for that. Very much appreciated. I've learned tons. I'm off now to go and not face plant every single time that I do it. Thanks for your advice.
Good luck.
You know how I get on. Cheers, buddy. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
And if you are interested to follow my progress and see how I get on with the foiling experiment, then make sure you hit like and subscribe to this video, and don't forget to ring the bell when you do. And I'll see you in the next episode, guys.